Welcome, my name is Bradley Gray from usbiologyteaching.com. Today I'm here to talk to you about 10 tips for your first year teaching biology. Now these tips are great for first year teachers, but they're also great for teachers who have years of experience, and just to kind of review some of the things you've already experienced, especially prior to walking into the classroom that first week of school or first day of school. So before we get too far into this, I just want to make sure that you stick around to the end so you could get your instructions on how to get your certificate of completion so you could turn it in for hours of credit to your school district for if they will accept it for professional development. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so let's get started. Tip number 1. You do not have to be perfect. In this profession, being perfect is not something that is sustainable. So it's okay for you to say no to taking on a new club or sponsoring an activity. These are things that are extra duties. You are not required to participate in them. Of course, if you want to, feel free. Just make sure you keep your plate manageable. Also, note that not every lesson that you teach has to be a home run. It's not a sustainable practice to put hours and hours into developing lessons that are home runs. This is something that you do over your career and build upon over time. You work on certain sectors of your lessons throughout your career, and eventually you'll end up with a whole collection of awesome activities and lessons that will engage your students. But for your first year, that is not something you need to take care of right away. Not every single lesson has to be a home run. Your goal should be to just make sure you're switching up your lessons, you're keeping your students engaged, and that you're just prepared for every single class period. Another thing to note is that you do not have to attend every after-school event. You do not have to stay late or come in early to tutor every single day. You can certainly attend events that you want to, but you should certainly not feel obligated to do so. Also, when it comes to tutoring, do it on your terms, not the student's terms. You have a life, and it's important that students respect your life outside of school and that you also make sure that you maintain a healthy teaching career. And that is going to also involve having a personal life and making sure that you make time for that as well. Next, tip number 2, find a mentor. So most districts do assign you a mentor, but if they do not, you should definitely make sure that you find one. Seek out a mentor. Also, sometimes the mentor you are assigned might not be your content area or might not even be in the same building as you. So it is important that you also seek out somebody who is maybe your unofficial mentor that is a bit closer by and is able to help you more easily. This is someone that you should be able to easily talk to, and they should have also at least a bit of experience in the district. I would say around 5 years. That's important because there's a lot of things that can occur within a district over time that you might not be aware of, and some newer teachers in the district might not be aware of, that could impact decision making. So those decisions that have occurred over time, they become ingrained into the history of the school and the culture of the school. So it's important that you have somebody with some experience that can help guide you through all those unwritten rules that you're going to have to figure out. Mentors are going to be able to help you with a lot of different things. So they're going to be able to help you figure out those school procedures, the written ones and the unwritten ones. They're also going to be able to help you with things that seem simple on the surface, but can also be complex or a little bit tricky at times. Things like setting up your grade book, figuring out the assessment policies within your school, what to do if somebody shows up late to your class. So these are all some things that your mentor is going to be able to help you with in terms of the school's policy. Also, they can be a go-to person for quick questions like, hey, how do I take a sick day? I'm not feeling very well. If you don't know the procedure for that, you can get yourself into some trouble. So you want to make sure that you know and understand exactly what you're supposed to do if you take a day off. Understand exactly what needs to be on the desk when the substitute teacher walks in. Those are little things that experienced teachers take for granted. So it's important that you take some time, make sure you figure those things out with the mentor. Other things like if you want to plan a field trip, you definitely want to figure out and have somebody to talk to about doing those things. They could save you a lot of time and frustration. Also, you can talk to them about handling a variety of situations that could pop up and definitely will pop up. So find yourself a good mentor, and that will be a great start to helping you navigate your way through the new school. On to our third tip. Tip number 3, get social. Social media is going to be critical for your professional growth. Social media is a great platform for you to connect with other teachers from all over the country. You can simply post questions, get quick answers to your situational questions with many different perspectives. When doing that, it's important to make sure you don't use any names of students or teachers within your building. You never know who is also within your group that you're posting or who will come across your post. So make sure you're professional in that manner. Also, you can find great activities. If you're struggling to hit a home run with your lesson, it's easy to reach out to some other teachers. Say, hey, what are you doing for this particular topic? And people are very generous in sharing their ideas that they have come up with or that they have tried. It's also a great platform to celebrate your accomplishments. And while doing that, it's also important to avoid the negativity. Negativity in our profession tends to run rampant. So you definitely want to surround yourself with positivity and make sure if there's somebody who's habitually negative that you block them from your feed, because in this profession, surviving depends on being positive. Your students feed off of positivity, they also feed off of negativity. So if you want to have a positive classroom environment, you also have to be positive. You can check out some of our pages. You can see the handles for Twitter, Facebook, and Pinterest if you're interested in looking for a place to get started. There are many groups on Facebook. That's one of my favorite places to go. And also there's new teacher chats on Twitter with the hashtag NTChat. On to tip number 4, set up procedures. In all the books that you read about your first year of teaching, there's a great emphasis on setting up procedures. It's important when setting up your procedures that you are comfortable enforcing them. You do not want to have procedures in place that you just aren't comfortable with or don't believe in. You have to make sure you establish them, practice them, and review them all within the first week or 2 of school. Simply writing them down on some paper or throwing them in the syllabus is not going to cut it. Your students need to understand what your procedures are and exactly how to go about following those procedures. For example, if a student walks in late, take that as an opportunity not to put that student on the spot, but to remind students of the procedure for students who are late, and kindly ask that student to act on that procedure, whether it be to go to the office and get a pass or to sign in your classroom, whatever it may be. Next, you have to be sure your expectations are clear and that you are absolutely consistent when you enforce them. Consistency is extremely important. You cannot, just because a student is a quote unquote good student, simply ignore some of their behaviors. You have to enforce behaviors consistently with all of your classes and students. So some important class procedures that you should consider. This one is a big one lately. What is the policy for your cell phone use? What is your classroom policy? The school may have a policy in place that says no cell phones allowed in the school. However, the reality is students aren't going to follow that procedure. So you have to have a plan in place for dealing with that. And this is a good one to talk to other teachers to see exactly how they handle it. And I would definitely get more than one opinion on that matter. Another big one is, what if a student is late to your class? What's the procedure for that? Is the procedure something that you can sustain? Is tardiness a big problem at that school? These are all things to consider. What are your procedures for lab? This is a big one for our biology classrooms. For biology classrooms, there are times when you may be working with very sharp items like a scalpel. You could be using fire. You could be using dangerous chemicals. So it's important that you have good procedures in place. One procedure that I like, if students are at the lab, they stay at the lab. If they need to leave the lab during lab time, they need to raise their hand. They need to get permission from me to leave their lab. But that may not work for every classroom because they might not have supplies available at every single station. So you have to find a procedure that's going to work for you and it's going to be safe for all your students. Another simple procedure to think about, do you accept late work? If you accept late work, what penalty will they receive, if any? So just to kind of get you started on some important classroom procedures, those are a couple to get you started. On to tip number 5. Consistency is key. What I mean here is that it's important for your class to run in the same manner each day. You need to set up a system that your students will become familiar with. So in our U.S. biology teaching curriculum, one thing that we like to do is start with a bell ringer. Some people might call it a warm-up. With the bell ringer, we do not necessarily start or do the same thing every single day, but we do a bell ringer every single day. The bell ringer can be a lot of things. It can be throwing the beach ball around the room to review some of the vocabulary terms. It can be to do a Quizlet Live to review some of the vocabulary terms that we learned. It can be to start with a video to introduce a topic, or it could be some engagement that I've created to gain the student's attention on the subject. So the bell ringer can be a lot of different things. The important thing is that every single day, students know to come into the class and that we're going to get started on something as soon as the bell rings. And that's something that should occur without having to be prompted. So over time, within your first week or two of school, that's something that you should be trying to ingrain into your students as part of your procedural practicing. Doing so is going to allow you to have some time to take care of the clerical things like attendance and checking in with students who may have been absent from the previous day. After the bell ringer, you want to move into your activities, whatever they may be. And with those activities, you want to try to switch it up every 20 minutes or so to make sure that you have an opportunity to check for student understanding, make sure everybody understands exactly what's going on. So you could do a quick check for understanding in a variety of different ways. It's important just to make sure you're checking in every 20 minutes or so, depending on the class and depending on the activities. Finally, you want to end with a closing activity. Students should, again, begin to expect this every single day. This will be an opportunity for you to review anything that might be assigned for homework, and also for you to review the material that you covered within the day, or even to look at the future material and what's going to be expected for the next day in class. It's also an opportunity to review any procedures students may have not followed well during class. It's important to understand that it's okay not to follow this pattern every single day. Some lessons do have to be adapted to fit certain obstacles. So you might have an assembly that can kind of throw a wrench into the mix of things and mix things up for you. You could also be running a lab that you cannot stop at 20 minutes, and that is completely fine. It's just important that your students begin to become familiar with the pattern that is in your class. People or the students are going to really like the structure of that over time. They like to know what's expected, or they like to know what to expect out of your class each day. And that kind of reduces anxiety for some of your students when they know what to expect every single day when they walk into your classroom. Tip number 6, you do not always have to be front and center. If you are front and center all the time, you cannot optimize your time. Not to mention your students need variety. Yes, they do need lecture as well, or direct instruction, but they also need a variety, especially in a classroom where you're dealing with more than just one student's preference. You have to meet the learning needs of all of your students. You're going to do that by varying your instructional strategies. So, for example, some alternatives to being front and center are things like creating videos, radio shows, podcasts, presentations, building models. Through these activities, your students are not just learning content, but they're also learning technical skills that they could apply later on. Students can also partner work. They can jigsaw, they can do group work, they can also do silent reading or writing. The importance here is that you have variety and you also have time to take care of the other things that teachers need to do. Things like grading papers, handing back papers, things like conferencing with students to let them know their standing, how they're doing in the class. Those are all really important things. You can also use that time to build positive relationships with students. Use that time to walk around the room and get to know your kids. Enjoy your job. You got into teaching because you like to interact with these children. You like to interact with the students. And building those positive relationships pays off huge when it comes time to ask them to work and ask them to put in the time to learning the content. Tip number 7 is to collaborate. You want to talk to other teachers. You want to listen to their advice. Some of the best learning that has occurred in my life has been with conversations of teachers either in the lunchroom or just walking down the hall to the copier, having conversations about specific situations. Getting the insight from other teachers is a big help. Also, you want to try to help other teachers when you can. Start off by asking if they need help cleaning up the lab or setting up. Use that as an opportunity to get to know your coworkers because you're going to need their support later on. Not to mention, sometimes it's just the right thing to do. Helping the other people out is going to just build a better relationship with your coworkers, and they're going to be more likely to help you out when you need it, regardless of how busy they are. Tip number 8, avoid negativity. You need to keep a positive attitude. Teaching is really hard, but it's also very rewarding. Being happy is a choice, and you need to make that choice. If you are having a bad day, your students know it. It's written all over your face. Students will feed off of your positivity. They will also feed off your negativity. If you want to take a bad day and make it good, choose to be happy. Choose to be positive. Your students will feed off that, and they will have fun. One of my favorite quotes is, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." I'm not sure who to give credit to that quote for. I've heard it in a lot of different scenarios, but I really do believe it. That really does truly speak to the character of a person. If you're around people who are happy, chances are, and positive, you're going to be that happy, positive person. you're around a bunch of people who are negative, you're going to become negative. So do yourself a favor and surround yourself by positive people. Tip number 9, actions speak louder than words. For this one, I want you to find out what your administrators want you to make a priority in the classroom. Just the act of you asking your administrator what they expect to see when they walk in your classroom tells the administrator that you are a teacher that wants to do a good job. So some of the things you could ask are, what do you expect to see when you walk into my classroom? Or what are some of your pet peeves? What is it that you do not want to see when you walk into my classroom? Those are just knowing those things are going to relieve some of your anxiety as a teacher, and hopefully some of the things they expect to see are good practices. You need to focus on what is best for your students, and you need to be professional. So when I say actions speak louder than words, being professional, focusing on what is best for your students is going to shine through and help people see that in the school you are a teacher, you are a professional, and you care about doing your job the right way. And simply asking the administrator, hey, what do you want to see when you walk into my room? What do you not want to see when you walk into my room? Speaks volumes about who you are as a person and a professional. Tip number 10, have a plan in place each day. Having a solid plan in place each class you teach every single day is going to be a source of stress relief. If you leave school every single day and you have a very solid plan for the next day, you're going to be able to relax a lot more easily. Being unprepared is a major source of stress, and you definitely want to avoid it. Being stressed out is going to make your students also feel stressed out, so you want to avoid that to prevent added stress in the classroom. Also, you don't want to reinvent the wheel. You're going to have all these things to do, creating plans, making copies, grading papers, and so much more that is going to be thrown onto your plate. So it's okay to make sure that you can go out and use things that are already done for you. It's also important that you optimize the procedures and do the things that we presented here in slides 1 through 9, or tips 1 through 9. On tips 1 through 9, we're all about helping you, one, avoid the stress, and two, optimize your time. The biggest hurdle you're going to have is finding time. Time for your personal life, time to do the things that you need to do just to maintain your classroom. So one of the things you can also do is consider purchasing a curriculum. So sometimes the schools can purchase that curriculum for you, or you can purchase it on your own. Don't be afraid to spend a little bit of your own money, because really what you're buying is time for your personal life. I'm going to give you a tour of some of the things that we have to offer here at usbiologyteaching.com. So stick around, and at the end, don't forget, we're going to tell you how to get your certificate to show evidence that you've done this training so you can get the credit. So welcome to the members area. Just give you a brief tour. In order to get to this point, just click on the members area link at the bottom. It'll open up in a new window so you could continue to listen to this or watch this while we take the tour together. I'll give you a minute to go ahead and open that up. You can do a split screen if you know how to do that. Just drag it to one side. Okay, so whether you got to the split screen part or not, I'm just going to give you a quick tour to see what we have. Just to offer it to you, it's here for you, especially these free sections. When you land, after clicking on that members area button, you will land in the members area. Here you'll see that there's all the topics that we offer for biology. Each unit comes with a lesson plan and a whole host of other things. Also have a community area and some extras that are continuing to be added to all the time. We also have a private Facebook group where you'll be able to collaborate with your peers who are also working the same curriculum, which is really cool to have a bunch of educators who are all working the same curriculum so they could collaborate together and kind of learn from each other as they go through the curriculum. So let's just take a look at our first unit here, the free unit that you can explore. So when you land inside, you'll see that there is everything laid out for you. Daily agenda that students could use, your lesson plan document that's written using the 5 E's. Every bell ringer for this particular unit is listed here and here with an answer key included. You can see the presentations and also the guided notes. Also, you can scroll down, you can see the worksheets are included here and even the video integration. There's the closing activities or closing worksheets and even quizzes and tests with the answer keys. In addition to all those things, the Quizlets are also integrated into that. The Quizlets are already done. All the same language that's used throughout the curriculum is used in the Quizlets. Also, you're going to see more of worksheets added all the time. So this is what you get inside. And if you're interested in taking a look further and going on to some of the other topics, you can certainly do so by clicking on full biology curriculum. And once you do that, you'll be able to scroll down and you just click for instant access to the curriculum. Here are some of the things that some of the people who have purchased the curriculum are saying. We've got a lot of great feedback from our members. So just click on that. Then you can choose the plan that you want, whether you want it monthly or yearly, depending on where you're at. So, and we also accept purchase orders. So if you're interested in getting a purchase order, click here and you will see a number of options for you to choose from. So once you log in and enter in your information, you'll get instant access to the entire curriculum. Everything that you need is going to be planned out for you for the entire year. So we talked about reducing stress and making sure that you are kind of showing up every single day for your students, ready to go and stress-free as possible, as positive as possible. This will definitely be a great start for you. In addition to just having all the lessons and all the worksheets, everything done for you, all the things that we were talking about throughout the presentation, like the procedures, they're embedded within there. There's tips in each of the lesson plans that will kind of help you go through this whole entire process. Let's go back real quick and just take a look at what a lesson plan layout looks like, just so you have an idea of what you get. And you could certainly explore these things on your own. They come in both PDF and Word documents. And with those, you can edit your documents. There's the amount of preparation. You could also see the Next Generation Science Standard that goes along with it. You can see anytime there's something that needs to be purchased that is perishable, it's highlighted. In this case, it's the superworms for the mealworm lab that we run. So you have a materials list there. And then you can see each day there's a bell ringer for every single day. You can see the explanation, and elaboration portion of the lessons broke down here in the middle section, broken down into about those 20-minute segments, and also the closing activities along with the tests that you can see linked in. Also, there's options for higher differentiation or lower differentiation in extension activities that are included. So when you look at the lesson plan, everything you need to present to your administrator is going to be there for you to use. Thank you for sticking around. I really hope you enjoyed this. I hope that you find this valuable and that you get off to a great start with your first year of teaching biology. Scroll down to the bottom of the page this video is hosted on, and you can find a link to your certificate of completion that you can turn in for credit for hours. Again, thank you. Have a great day and first year of teaching biology.